Well, hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the New Construction Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Anya Chrysanthon, and I'm very excited to introduce my guest for today, Courtney Rogers with Denim Marketing. Courtney, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being here today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you. And you're in Atlanta area, is that right?
That's right, I am.
All right, so I think we have to talk about the inevitable. What's the situation like with the coronavirus over where you guys are?
It's nerve-wracking, I guess. I mean, I think everybody has so many emotions about it. There's so much conflicting information. They're closing. A lot of the schools around us are closed for at least 2 weeks, if not, kind of indefinitely right now. And there's been, people kind of scared, clearly, going to the grocery stores and all the things. We're hearing all of those stories, so it's just a nerve-wracking time right now because nobody really knows what to expect or how this is going to turn out, and everybody's just kind of like holding their breath and waiting, I think, to see if it's going to get as bad as they're predicting, or if things are going to be okay sooner than later. So
Yeah, same thing, kind of like around where I am. So I'm right outside of Philadelphia, and we just got notified last night that my kid's school is shut down for at least 2 weeks.
yeah.
So if somebody comes in busting through the door here in the middle of this interview, I got my hubby working at home, and we're like fighting over who gets the office, and I'm like,
Yes.
what are you doing here? I can't get my thing going here when you're around kids,
Right.
dogs. I mean, it's a little chaotic. So.
I get that completely. Yeah, we're working remotely too for the foreseeable future, so same boat.
Yeah. So you must be really, glad that you have the capacity to work remotely, and it doesn't really affect what you do in the sense with marketing,
Right.
That's a great part about it. So,
That's true.
yeah, so that's always nice. So I think going forward as salespeople, we always have to be prepared for, whether it's coronavirus or it's just a way of the future. I think more and more people would want to do business remotely, not necessarily come into your model home. So I
Right.
think you have to be comfortable with learning the systems and knowing the technology that's available to you to make this possible. So because you can get through a lot of steps without being face-to-face necessarily, and still establish that like and trust factor with somebody, just like we're doing over video conferencing, for example. So
Right. Yeah, definitely. It's definitely an opportunity, I guess, if you want to look at it that way, for us to, test out these other options and ways to engage and still, continue to do business that, may become normal sooner
yeah,
than later. So
absolutely. It's the way of the future. So might as well embrace it.
that's right.
Well, Courtney, thank you so much for joining me. And if you don't mind starting us off a little bit about who you are, how did you, end up at Denim Marketing, and what your journey has been professionally, so our listeners can get a little bit of a background information on you.
Okay, yeah. So I actually started with denim right after college. This was my first, professional job outside of internships and things that I had done. So I was a public relations major in college, and then came back to Atlanta and was interviewing and looking for a place, and was lucky enough to find Carol and the denim team, and I've been here ever since. So I think we're approaching 7 years, I'm pretty sure, is where I'm at.
Wow.
That I've been here. So, and just, started, with learning the basics and moving, just moving my way up and taking on more and more responsibility, and growing from just, doing the simple tasks, the content tasks like writing blogs and making social media calendars, to more, big picture strategic marketing, and, having my hand in a little bit of everything, whether it's, advertising or email marketing, traditional public relations. We do a little bit of all of it. And then of course, the account management side and planning and everything as well. So we do, like I said, a little bit of everything, and it's really fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for that. So I know you've had a popular talk that you've delivered to some of the local HBAs and BIAs about personal brand, and so I think it's such a hot topic lately, and people tend to really make it a much bigger thing that it needs to be. So I thought it was a perfect opportunity to talk about personal brand, what that is, why we should care, and obviously, a lot of it is going to be how you represent yourself online, but it also is in person. And I think that is the part where we sometimes forget that your
Mm-hmm.
personal brand is basically who you are, right? The easiest way I like to describe your personal brand is what people say about you professionally when you're not in the same room with you, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
everything
Yeah, I think I had literally that quote in my slideshow when I'm
oh,
presenting,
nice.
in person, and
Okay,
I have my PowerPoint. I include that quote.
so good. I'm on the right track then.
Yes.
And I think especially with salespeople, so many salespeople come straight out of college
Hmm.
and go into builder sales role. And so I'd like to talk about some of the things that what we can do about representing ourselves appropriately, so that our, I guess, perception of personal brand matches what we're actually projecting out there, because
Right.
we've all seen a girl with, too tight of a pants on, or
Hmm.
things like that. So before we actually get into it, why don't you get us started and tell us a little bit about, what is personal brand and why should we care?
Yeah, absolutely. So, having a personal brand is important, and understanding how people view you and your brand is really key. And even though it has the word personal in it, it's your personal brand. And most of our jobs, what we do, your personal brand does have an effect on you from a professional standpoint as well. So it's really important to know that they're interconnected, and to understand that, and to remember sometimes to take a step back and look at how others are viewing you from the outside in. And there's lots of things go into your personal brand, but I think in my talk I typically talk about three of the key factors. But just kind of in a nutshell, from like a definition standpoint, personal branding is the way you package and present the unique combination of skills and experiences that make you who you are.
Love that. So, and then typically when you talk about the three things, what are the three things?
So the three things that I talk about specifically are that it affects, that your personal brand affects, is your credibility, your authenticity, and then trust.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think, and for if you think about any relationship, I mean, credibility, authenticity, and trust is
Yes,
essential, right? So,
absolutely.
and sometimes I think we don't realize it. We don't realize how we represent ourselves, and
Mhm.
the thing is, it's how the world views you, and a lot of the times it is about perceptions, right? So
Absolutely.
perceptions are really hard to change.
Hmm.
So you have to make sure that what you think you're projecting to the outside world actually matches that. So
Yeah,
how can we make sure that is what we're projecting, that we're projecting what we want people to see, what
right.
they know about us?
Yeah, and that's pretty much, I mean, the key part of personal branding. It's unfortunate. We don't like to think about the fact that, we're basically being, assessed or judged, for lack of a better term, on a daily basis. But it's true. People make snap judgments or those first impressions on you every single day. And your personal brand and all of those things that we talked about, how you package and present yourself, plays into those judgments or assessments, or impressions that people are getting about you. So knowing and having control over your personal brand, in effect, gives you a little bit of control about what those people are thinking about you. So you can influence that by having a personal brand that you are proud of, and that is, like you said, portraying what you want people to see and know and feel when they think about you. And then in turn, your business or your job or whatever that may be.
Yeah, and you're so right, Courtney. So first impressions, if you think about it, it's so important, right? Whether it's first impression about your model home when people walk in, I
Mhm.
mean, from once they start driving into your community, is there trash everywhere? Is there,
Right.
you know, signs are all over the place and
Mhm.
it just looks like a hot mess? Or when they come in through the model door and are you there to open the door and actually greet them, or are you still sitting at your desk? Those are all the things that start to shape people's impression of who you are and their experience working with you. And the thing is, it's really hard to change first impressions.
Very hard.
So you got to make sure you put your best foot forward. So anytime you think about that client interaction, think about it. They're going to your model home, and then they're also visiting probably 5 other builders down the street. And what is the impression that you're giving them? Are you just sitting on your desk, at your desk, finishing up your lunch and, wiping your mouth and saying,
Right.
oh, I'm so sorry? Or are you at the door to open the door for them, to greet them, to make them feel special?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, it did. I mean, and just like you said, if you come into a community and there's trash, or, if it's just not visually appealing, that is going to have an effect on that person's attitude or thoughts when they walk into the model home and meet you for the first time. And it's true in reverse. Even if your community is beautiful, if you project an attitude of not caring, just in general, or, not caring about your personal brand, whatever that may be, then that reflects poorly on the community, or the builder or whoever. And so that's a good example of how personal branding affects you both personally and professionally. And it definitely goes both ways.
Yes. Okay. And so obviously there are things that we can do to influence the way that we're being perceived. And hopefully if you're taking the, inventory of how you're presenting yourself. So I always like to even take an inventory online. I mean, in person is one thing, and online is a whole other topic. But, what I'd like to challenge you on is go ahead, pull up your, first of all, okay, let's start with Google yourself is number 1. And number 2, look at all your social accounts. And when you think about your personal brand, I think it always helps to come up with like 3 words, just like you're talking about credibility, authenticity, and trust. Like, come up with 3 words that you'd like people to think of you professionally when they describe you. Write them down, and then look at all the things that you are online, and does that match it? So if your social media and say Facebook is not private and your clients can see that, what are you talking about in your posts? Like, what kind of pictures are you posting? What are you projecting? So if you don't want that to be visible to your clients, if you think, well, that's my personal stuff, then make sure that it is actually personal and not public, because that is a big thing. Yeah, you bet your bottom line that people are not only stalking your community, but they're also stalking you before they make that decision to buy. So that would be my number 1 advice when it comes to online stuff, is to Google yourself, and then go through all of your social media accounts and really do an honest audit, and see how would somebody view you from their perspective if this was the first time they're coming into contact with you. And if you're not comfortable with what you're putting out there, just make sure that the accounts are private.
Yeah, absolutely. We see, even like me personally, I'm friends with quite a number of our clients and customers on my social media accounts. So we're all so interconnected, even though they are, private and part of your personal life. If you're going to open them up, you absolutely have to view everything you're doing through the lens of both a business partner or client, in addition to your family and friends. You've got to look at it with that wider angle view and make sure that you're okay with your business relationships or acquaintances viewing that content and what it says about you as a person. I mean, because again, people are going to take those judgments or impressions of what you put out there, and it's going to become part of how they think about you. That's something that I talk about in my presentation, even with something as simple as a headshot, that plays a big part into your credibility. And it is one of the things related to credibility that you have control over. And, we see a little bit of everything related to headshots, which is really surprising from some of the headshots that we've seen from some of the professionals that we've worked with. We put together a book for a conference that had like all the attendees in it and the companies and all of, little bio, but it included the names and headshots and contact information for the actual representatives from the companies that were attending. And, some of them were CEOs or presidents or owners or VPs. And a lot of them had, good professional headshots, but not all of them did. It was really, we've got some selfies, we got some, cropped pictures of people being cropped out, of them clearly, out with a group of friends or, things like that. And that's not really how you probably want to be perceived in a professional standpoint if you are an executive of a company, or even if you're just a representative of your company that deals with the public, period. So that's just one small example of something that you can have control over that affects how people are going to view you. And that one, like I said, it plays a lot into your credibility from both a personal and a professional standpoint. And we get, in our industry, people tend to be a lot more relaxed and casual with one another, which is okay for the most part. I think that there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you, kind of keep it in moderation, or keep in mind that even though you are casual, you still are a business. You're still conducting business. It's still a professional job. And so we see a lot of people, they'll do fun headshots where they're not in the traditional, studio with the gray background, but they might be outside and have, a brick background, or, different fun things like that give a little bit more personality, but they're still nice, professional headshots, even if they aren't the traditional studio. And so it's okay to, do things like that to show your personality. That's part of personal branding. You're allowed to have personality in there, but just keeping it, somewhat in line with that representation that you want to put out there.
For sure. And I think it's so important to have that continuity too, from say your Facebook to LinkedIn to Instagram, especially if you're making your Facebook and Instagram public, or if you have a business account, that it is important that you're using the same headshot between multiple different social media platforms, so that people can easily recognize you. Mm-hmm. And it does carry through your personal brand. And yes, so just because you look cute in that picture doesn't mean you should crop out the other bridesmaids and put yourself and use that as your headshot. So speaking of headshots, it's really inexpensive to hire a photographer to do a headshot photo shoot. That way you have some photos to choose from, and maybe that's something, if you don't have for your team, you can talk to your sales manager and see if that can be arranged as part of your one of the sales meetings. Everyone gets a headshot, right? Chip in. It's not going to be very expensive.
Absolutely. And even, in this day and age, your phones on your cameras are so good that if if you have somebody who has a little bit of knowledge about, appropriate lighting and things like that, it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. If you have someone with an eye for that can, take headshots, find good lighting, good natural lighting outside where there's not a lot of shadows, and, use a newer iPhone that has an exceptional camera or whatever, it may be, and take pictures with that's okay and passable for social media and things like that, as long as your quality or resolution is good enough. You don't have to spend hundreds of dollars to take something like a headshot and still be get that professional look that you're going for. And then I think you made a good point about using the same one across your social sites. I think that's really crucial, especially good, because I know a lot of realtors use things like their Facebook as a selling tool. So if you're going to do that, and if you're mixing your business and your personal on there, that's so key, because just like a business, when they use their logo as their, identifier on their social profiles, they're using the same logo across the board. You may have to crop it or shape it differently, based on, whether it's a square or a circle on the different profiles, but they're using the same logo across everything. And that's what makes them, identifiable or recognizable. And so kind of having that same thought process about something like your headshot and that image you're portraying out there is really important.
Yes, absolutely. So I don't want to go into the realtor headshots because that's always, if you want to find some funny memes online, just, Google realtor headshots. You'll find lots of examples of what not to do, I think.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? Like, when was this taken? 1980?
Right. Yeah, somebody's going to walk into a sales center or meet with you, and they're not going to recognize you anymore based on that photo that you're using. It's probably time for a new one.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So that is all good as far as the online presence goes. And I think it's also important to mention that as far as online presence goes, like if you choose to make your Facebook public, and what kind of topics should you comment or not comment on? Like, obviously with it being election year and a lot of heated debates happening, like just think twice before you decide to comment publicly about something as hot of a topic as politics, because in the moment you may be like, oh, this person, I just want to give them my peace of mind and tell them how I feel. But is it worth it? Because 50-50, you're going to either, make 50% of people really angry with you. And then, you can make the other 50% really happy with you. But is it worth it?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, especially like you brought up a good point, being an election year, there's a lot of conversation going on around that. And then, of course, with what's going on right now, there's a lot of, different beliefs and opinions on, the crisis we're currently facing. Right. And you do just have to remember that these are topics that people are extremely sensitive about and extremely passionate about. And people are willing to, not do business with people who don't share the same views with them if they feel strongly enough about it. And, whether that's right or wrong is everybody's personal opinion. That may be something you disagree about too, as to whether or not, that the business side should be affected by that personal belief, but it is reality. Right. And so you have to assess if that's, personally, is that a risk you're willing to take if you're only representing yourself? If you're representing a larger company, whether it be a builder or whoever you work for or associated with, you have to think about, from that respect too, if you know that your social profiles aren't shut down, from a privacy standpoint, to where only your friends and family or whoever are connected with you. If there's a chance that people that you do business with are going to see that, you have to take that into consideration and make sure that you're not going to cause problems on a business standpoint. And there's a lot of companies, specifically larger ones, there's even policies and things in place related to social media. If you are, even if you have something as simple as saying who you work for on your profile that ties you to that brand or that company, and you need to make sure that by speaking out or voicing, your opinion, you are not violating any of those things. I think that's typically not an issue with smaller or local companies, but when you're talking about some of the bigger ones, it can definitely be something that you need to watch out for, because it's not worth being potentially even losing your job. I mean, in the most severe cases. And like we talked about earlier, I know most people view their social profiles as their personal space. But again, once you attach yourself to your business in some way on there, you lose a little bit of that ability to totally call it yours and call it personal. So just keep that in mind.
Yes, absolutely. I cannot agree anymore with you. So just, make sure that you review your company's social media policy, that you don't break any of the rules, because last thing you want is to get in trouble for something that you weren't even aware of. Mm-hmm. So, all right. So that's the stuff online. And I think most of us hopefully will take the hard look at it and see what you're projecting out there. But obviously your personal brand extends so much more than just online. We have to remember in person. So let's talk a little bit about in-person personal branding, do's, don'ts, what kind of things we should be considering, evaluating. And I have perfect example for how to audit yourself in real life, because it's one thing to look at yourself in the mirror and do the OOTD, right? Oh, looking cute and this and that. But it's a different thing when you see yourself on camera.
Mm-hmm.
So I would love it. I mean, if there was an opportunity for you to see yourself on camera, and I mean, like really interacting with other people, just so I think if you can get video shopped, that is the best thing that could possibly happen to you. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. You realize a lot about yourself, about your tendencies or your habits and things like that when you see on video. And I mean, not taking it not quite that far. I know that even like you were saying with the outfit of the day post or what you're planning to wear, I will a lot of times, if I know I'm going to be photographed for whatever reason in something I'm wearing at an event, or I'm actually getting married next weekend, so
congratulations, how exciting.
Yes, it is. But there's lots of photo opportunities and things going on at events and showers and things like that lately. So I will take a picture of myself, even, get someone else, my fiance or somebody too, or even if I have to take a picture, in a full length mirror, and then look and see how that outfit works, in a photo. Does the lighting show you anything that you didn't realize could be seen?
Yes.
And are you happy with the way it covers and the way you look? Because a lot of times we see things differently on camera for sure than we do in person, or even just glancing in the mirror. And video is certainly continuation of that, from even a bigger standpoint of you as a whole, not just how your outfit looks or how you're standing, or which way to stand makes you look thinnest in the camera. Those things are all important to us ladies, especially, I know. But like you said, the seeing your tendencies and habits and the way you carry yourself, all of that is part of your personal brand. And video is a great way to see yourself and catch things maybe that you didn't realize that you were doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it is, I think one of the most difficult things is to be self-aware. So being on film really forces you to look at yourself from outside perspective. And most of the time it's really painful. I mean, it really is, right? When the first time you see yourself on camera, I don't think anyone's like, who is that amazing looking person?
So true.
Doing all the perfect things. Usually for most of us, it's a cringe reaction, right? Because it's just like listening to your own voice on a voice mail. It's like, do I sound like that? Like, ew. So same thing with watching yourself on video. It can be a really cringe-worthy moment, but I think it's also really important to see yourself on camera, because it really does give you an outside perspective that you can't get otherwise. And anything from your hairstyle that you think looks cute, versus like how does it actually look from different angle, to your outfits. I think the outfits is especially important, as well as makeup, really, for ladies. For guys, obviously outfits are important, but I think more so for women, because women tend to be judged even more so. And let's face it, in the new home sales profession, vast majority of us are women. But we also have to realize that when you're selling to couple, it's typically the woman who is making the buying decision. So, I think above all, you have to make sure that you presenting yourself professionally, not necessarily how cute is my outfit, because you have to think about the wife's perspective. And if you're wearing pants that are maybe a little too tight and look really good on your butt, but that shirt that may be exposing a little bit too much cleavage, how is the wife sitting next to her husband gonna react to that? And you think about, well, if that's the house they want, that's the house they're gonna get. Like, no.
Yeah.
If the wife feels uncomfortable with you or threatened by you, that may be a deal breaker.
Absolutely. I mean, you don't want to give anyone a reason to have a negative feeling or to put a negative connotation around what you're selling. And even having a negative reaction to you as a person is going to affect that. I mean, and I think it even goes so far as, sometimes contemplating, or addressing appropriately for even the market that you're in or the price point that you're in. There's going to be different expectations, based on where you are. And so making sure that the way you're even dressing and presenting yourself is going to make everybody feel the most at ease and the most comfortable is important, because you can't, there's only so much negativity you can overcome. And if you're giving anyone, in that instance, the wife, a reason to have a negative view of you and your product by extension, then that is absolutely, I mean, there's a lot of competition, and you don't want to do anything that could potentially be a deal breaker, sway them in the other direction. Because I'm sure she has, like you said, the power, the buying power, the final decision making in that. And if there's two homes that are beautiful, that they love, that are in the same price point, and they're having a difficult decision deciding between those, that could be the deciding factor. And you never want to have something like what you wear be what causes you to lose money out of your pocket, your company's pocket. So
yeah, and I think you brought up a really good point that depending where you sell, like price point, community, it could certainly affect the way that you should dress. So I think there's definitely leeway for certain communities where being more on a casual side will make your buyers feel more comfortable. Like, say if you're in a like quote unquote hipster community, like you probably don't want to be super buttoned up and super formal, because you're going to turn off those buyers. But if you're in a high-end community and working maybe with some of the older buyers, also think about how you're dressing. So I think the key is to always be on the side of a caution. If you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're like, I don't know about this one, it could, like, if you're having doubts in your mind, then I would say it's probably a no.
Yeah, that's really true. That's true. And I like to have, most of us have that person or group of friends that we can ask for that reality check if you need it. Have those people, know who those people are. And if you're struggling with that choice, or if you're not really sure how others might view it, don't be afraid to ask if you have those people in your life that will give you that honest feedback that sometimes we all need, just as a reality check, there to make us think about things that we might not have.
Yeah, just be careful who you ask for sure, because you don't want to certain people's opinion for sure. So
well, yeah.
But yeah, so always a good idea to do an audit of what are you wearing. If you're not quite sure if that's the right choice, if you think maybe this is a little too tight or inappropriate, chances are it probably is. And you're never going to regret overdressing. You're never going to regret being more on the professional side than underdressing and being a little bit too revealing, and making somebody feel uncomfortable.
Absolutely. I agree. Totally.
All right. So we talked about the personal appearance, hair. We talked about the outfits. What about makeup? Let's talk about makeup too, because sometimes you see certain people and it's like, whoa, that is an orange face, or, whoa, that is a little, intense for daytime look. So I think that is another thing you have to be really aware of is, daytime makeup versus maybe going out makeup. And again, if you just go to like Sephora or one of those places, and if you're not sure if you're still using the right concealer that matches your skin tone, because I think that is a huge one. Like when I see grown women and, their face is like, you know, 7 shades darker than the
Yeah,
rest of
that
the body.
line.
Yeah, the line. And it's just like, oh, like, I know in college we all used to tan, and that was the thing. And um it definitely makes you feel less confident in their ability. I mean, it may be like one of those things that's like, oh, it's so judgmental, but it's true, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is. It just goes back to like what we talked about at the beginning with people making snap judgments. It's unfortunate, but that is again the reality that we live in. I mean, and that's something that you have to think about, and you can't just brush it off, like you said. And if they don't like it, then
Mm-hmm.
they don't have to do business with me. Well, that's not. We don't want. Nobody really wants to feel that way. We don't really want people to not do business with us because of the way we look. So, keeping that in your thoughts is important. Do you do mostly business inside under fluorescent lighting? Make sure that you look at yourself under similar lightings before you leave out of the house every morning. I mean, there's simple little things that you can do. It doesn't have to, you don't have to change yourself entirely from who you are. But, if you're going to be in, if your sales office is in a room that's surrounded by windows and natural light and it's going to be sunny all the time, then make sure that you check yourself in that type of lighting before you leave, because we, as women, we know that makes a huge difference
Mm-hmm.
in how our makeup is going to look when we walk out of the house. And then I think as far as how much and things like that, it kind of goes back to the way you're dressing. If you have the ability to be in a market or a price point or whatever that is a little bit more casual, then it's okay for your makeup to have your daytime more casual makeup on. I think, again, as women, most of us have our daytime makeup or going out evening weekend makeup. And then if you do have to be dressed more traditional business or things like that, like we have a client in a higher end condo market, so they obviously dress very differently on the sales side than what some of our suburban agents do that sit in a starter home community. So they're going to be a little more done up, have a little bit more makeup on, because it matches the way they're the way that they are dressing. And it's I had this conversation with my fiance recently because I had my hair makeup trial for our wedding, and he didn't understand Harry, why to wear so much. He was like, you never usually wear that much makeup. Like, do you have to for that day? So I had to explain to him, first of all, for the occasion, I can't wear my everyday makeup in a wedding dress because
Right.
they don't go together. It's not going to look right. And then, explain the whole photography and why you need more, because it white lightens you and all of that. So just like we think about special events and having your hair done or your makeup done for a big award ceremony, or when you're going to be dressed formal like that on your wedding or anything else, it's the same kind of thought process for how you're dressing every day. We wear our hair and our makeup certain ways based on the type of outfit we're wearing. So if you match appropriately to you personally, obviously, and then an extension, your your demographic, your market, or your job, I think if you kind of keep that in mind, that is a good guide as to what's acceptable and what's not acceptable.
Yeah. Aren't the guys so lucky? It's
They
like,
really are.
what is this makeup trial, hair trial?
I know. I mean, literally, they can just, nice pair of jeans or slacks and a button down, and all they got to do is make sure it's ironed, and they're pretty good. And we have a little bit more to think about.
Yes, definitely. Well, it's so exciting, Courtney, that you're getting married in a week. So you'll have to practice saying my husband instead of my
I know.
fiance now. That is
Yes, I am. I am. Just fingers crossed, everything stays good, and
Oh
things
yeah,
that
you know what? I didn't even think about that. So yeah, with your venue and everything, and what, like, is your venue indoor, outdoor, or like what's it?
both, but it's destination. So
Oh, like outside the country or
no, it's inside the country still,
okay.
thankfully. But we're just kind of playing it by ear right now and kind of just waiting to hear, because obviously with all of the things, a lot of restrictions in place, there's a possibility between now and next weekend that things could change. So we're just kind of holding our breath and hoping for the best. And, we've got some family members that we're planning to come that were pregnant or have just had newborns and things like that. So it's definitely affecting everything right now. So.
Oh man, that is rough. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. It's like how it can affect the everyday. Well, if nothing, you can take those cute photos with the face mask,
Right.
bridal party.
I know.
Well, I hope everything, blows over and it doesn't affect your wonderful day, and wish you all the best with that. So,
Thank
and
you.
Courtney, before you go, are there any other, things we need to consider when it comes to personal brand? Any last thoughts or advice that you want to leave our viewers with?
I would say probably one of the only other things that I usually talk about that we didn't cover is just your, I guess, how you are portraying yourself when you're in person. I know a big part of our business, obviously, if you're on the sales side, you're interacting with people every day. And then a lot of what we do too, there's tons of, networking events and opportunities for, attending meetings and things like that. And keeping in mind where you are in the setting, I think a lot of times is really crucial. And again, it goes back to, I know that we tend to have a fairly casual industry. And even when we go to industry events, a lot of the people that we see and are interacting with are also our friends. We've developed those personal relationships with the people that we do business with a lot of times outside of business. Because in our industry, we're in this industry for so long, people stay in it for decades and decades and don't leave. They might change companies or move job roles, but we're all still doing business together, and everybody's known each other for years and years and years. And I know personally, I was at a networking event back in the fall, and there was a group of people all there from the same company. They were all younger, all hanging out together. And as the night progressed, it was at a brewery. They their conversations got more casual, they got little bit louder, and they got a little bit more inappropriate. And there were, everybody around them could hear what they were talking about, and it veered off into a direction that was really unprofessional and not something that everybody else that they do business with should have been hearing them talk about. It just wasn't, really a good look. And especially being that they were at a work event, wearing company shirts and name tags and there to represent their company and that brand. It was a really, not a good look, to be totally honest. And I'm sure if their bosses and company owners had been there that night, they would not have been pleased about what was happening. So I think that's another thing to really, remember is it even goes as far as the words that you say, out loud when you're out in public and interacting with other people that you'll do business with, or in a setting where you're representing your brand, is keep that in mind. Just as important as what you post on Facebook or social media as what you say out loud in person, because people are hearing what you're saying, and that can reflect positively or negatively on you depending on what you're talking about. So just keeping that in mind from both a personal and professional standpoint is really important. Like I said at the beginning, it's the whole package. It's everything that you do. So
I told you somebody needs in the middle.
What size is it?
I don't know. You go now. Okay, mommy's busy.
I know. I was worried. We're supposed to have a package delivered in a little while, and I was so afraid it was going to happen while we're on here. And then if the doorbell rang or they knocked on the door, my dog was going to start barking, and then she got up and
better me than you. So yeah, I'm surprised both of them didn't bust in. And I have twin 8-year-old boys. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you guys remember drinking too. Like how much are you drinking at the event? Usually, like 2 drink rules, probably a good idea, so that you don't go over and get a little too tipsy.
Yes.
And it's just like, what goes behind the closed doors. Like I'm a huge potty mouth, believe it or not. I can curse like a sailor, but on my podcast, I try to not do that. So that,
Yeah. We all have our faults. We all have our little things that we might not want the rest of, everybody else to realize or see. So yeah, it's important that you temper that and, remember where you are. And the alcohol thing is, so much of this seems like common sense, but again, we get so relaxed and casual in our relationship so often that it goes right out the window. We forget, in all honesty, or we just don't think about it. And sometimes we need that reminder, and it has to be said. And I have certainly seen people overindulge at different work events or business related things, and it's not. Everybody's human. We all make mistakes, and you hope that that's what, how people will think about it, but you just never know. And you just don't want some silly little thing or just one little decision that you make to affect, your business potentially for the long term, or how people think about you or your brand.
Absolutely. Especially now, that we're starting to feel the effects of coronavirus on the economy as a whole, and we've officially entered bear market. Right. And it's like there's a good market syndrome when everyone is like, whatever, those homes are selling themselves, like it doesn't really matter. But once the market changes, and you really have to step up your game, and that's where true professionals are going to shine. And so it's especially important to pay attention to the little things when so much is at stake.
Absolutely. Yeah. You really need to give yourself every advantage that you can right now in these conditions, especially considering that we don't know how long they're going to last and how long or far reaching the effects are going to be. So I think this is an opportune time to just think about how something as seemingly inconsequential or maybe small or unimportant as this, topic or conversation may be, that right now it could be a difference maker potentially with things the way that they are.
Absolutely. Well, Courtney, thank you so much for being on the show today. Shared so much great content. And I think, again, you guys, it's so important to just do this audit on social, in your personal life, your professional life. Just see how you're representing yourself, because it is really difficult to look at yourself through the outside lens, but it is very important to do that. And every so often it's a good idea to do that, because as you're growing, as you're getting older, certain things that were okay 5 years ago are probably no longer okay. What you used to wear in college is probably not acceptable in professional settings. So just be aware, and that's the key, is to just be aware and to audit it. And if you're not sure, ask somebody, and always remember, ask yourself. And if your own self is saying, I don't know so much, I'd say that's probably a no. So, well, Courtney, thank you again for being here. I wish you all the best luck with your upcoming nuptials, and that everything is perfect for your perfect day. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you, and I will talk to you very soon.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.